All right, so we have 23 people on, and it's the top of the hour. So how about I just I'll do a quick introduction and I'll hand over to you. So where are we here? So yeah, Gerald, monitoring expert with Stater. I'll let you introduce yourself and kick us off.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you can see on the screen in a moment, as soon as I share the presentation. As you can see on the screen, my name is Gerald, or Gerald, for those speaking Dutch among us. And I work as a monitoring specialist and senior DBA at Stater in Amersfoort. We manage about the smaller half of the Dutch mortgage market in terms of administration. And I joined both as a monitoring specialist and a DBA. And my job has since shifted even more towards the monitoring side of things. Not surprisingly, because as I said, we manage quite a few mortgages, and with all the digitalization that's going on, people trying to log on to see their own statements and everything, that's becoming more and more of a digital thing. So we need to keep track of those services that we offer. And that starts by checking how they're doing. So basically monitoring them. Apart from that, I was inspired by SCOM last year to start a blog. Not very active, I'm afraid, not yet anyway. Takes a lot of time. And that's me. And I want to talk to you about changing RunAs passwords. And just to give a short overview, obviously the introduction, which we're on now. I want to go shortly into why we have RunAs accounts and why we should change the passwords. I've created a small tool set to ease the SCOM admin work on that. I wanted to do a live demo, but I'm afraid it's going to be more of a screenshot thing because my lab environment, with a very poor sense of timing, decided to quit on me a few hours ago, and I haven't been able to fix things. After that, there'll be the Q&A, as with all the other presentations. And I'd like to keep things interactive. So, it says here go to webinar chat, but I think that should be the Slack window that should be monitored. And there we are. The Slack link's on there, but I think you already found it. Plenty of people in there. Right. A quick poll when we talk about keeping things interactive, and I think the Zoom host should be able to start that now. Yep, there the answers go. Okay, nice even distribution on it. And let's give a few more seconds. And I think about 1 in 3 has more than 10 RunAs accounts configured, as far as I can see now. 35%, as Alan said, 1 to 5. 31% has said 6 to 10. And the rest of the respondents have indicated 11 to 20 or even more than 20 accounts. And, well, you can feel the next question around the corner probably. How many of those RunAs accounts have elevated privileges? And I will correct that typo in the final version, I hope. Right, not that many, though. There's quite a few that have some RunAs accounts without elevated privileges, as it should be. The principle of least privileges is a very good thing to keep track of. But there are 25% of the answers is that 6 to 10 or even more than that have elevated privileges. And those will probably be the accounts for domains checks or databases or something. Right, and then obviously the next question is, how often do you change passwords? Yeah, and when we have to, could also be because there has been a breach for something. Could be that there's a company policy that forces you to change them, not because they expire, but because you've got procedures in place for that. And just wait a bit longer. Well, as things stand now, 27% has answered never. So the RunAs accounts aren't changed at all. And I'm not surprised, because it is quite a hassle. You have to make sure that you don't break anything. You have to make sure you put things in maintenance or take other sorts of measures. Sometimes you have to wait until the password replication has taken effect. But on the other hand, as we saw, there's also quite a few respondents that indicated accounts with elevated privileges. So, and then why do we have RunAs accounts? Well, usually it's because the other option would be to have engineers sitting around at their desks waiting until the next reporting cycle to gather information and insert that some way into the SCOM database or something. That would have to be a 24-hour job, and then you have the annoying human behavior like the need for sleep and the need for food. So you'd have to have quite a few people working on that when you actually want to have an automated system. So that's why we have RunAs accounts. The other option would be to have people there, and let's not forget those people. Those RunAs accounts, you often have elevated privileges, and that's also why we need to protect them. We need to protect those RunAs accounts because they have elevated privileges. But what you often see is that the passwords are stored somewhere in an Excel sheet, in a password manager, or in some other sort of document or store. And those passwords, even when someone leaves, those passwords are not changed. And the problem with that is, in combination with those elevated privileges, is that once someone comes in and finds the password, or someone leaves the organization on less than friendly terms, those credentials could then be abused to wreak all sorts of havoc. Just imagine a domain admin simply deleting all the computer accounts for the service. That might be somewhat of an issue. Or going around and deleting all the service accounts in the Active Directory. Could get quite nasty. But then again, if we change the RunAs accounts, we keep them secure, we run into a battle, And that's the eternal battle between security and usability. And personally, I like the example of a house as an explanation. Obviously, the house on the left side is quite secure, but it does leave somewhat to be somewhat to be desired when it comes to usability. I don't even want to imagine climbing over that fence. And those dogs don't look vicious, but usually they are in this sort of situations. On the other hand, the house on the left, that is quite usable, but unless this is somewhere in the middle of nowhere, that TV will be going shortly. And you can pretty much bet on that. So is that secure? Not really. But even if we look at the house on the left, that may look secure, but it only takes one flaw in the security to pretty much destroy the entire secure thing. We only have to open one door and things get nasty. The only key we have to a door like this is the password. And I did think I do want to have a quick closer look at that. Because passwords, for those of you that think passwords are a no concept in the digital era, not really. Passwords as a means of identification, friend or foe, are as old as the Romans. The Roman legions used to have a password system to check if they were friendly. Considering the number of civil wars among the Romans, that's not too much of a bad thing, because in the dark you couldn't even see if it was a friendly legionnaire or someone from the other side. But that brings to the other problem. Passwords are secure as they are secret. Nobody will write down the password and post it on the outside of the building, but passwords can be written down somewhere and stuck to monitors and all that. By now, we should not see that happen too often anymore, but you never know. And besides, the secrecy can be broken, either by post-its or by inadvertently mailing it somewhere, or someone using WhatsApp. Yeah, can you give me the domain account password? Yes, sure, this is it. And there we go. So secrecy can be broken, and secrecy will suffer from old age. The older a password is, the more people can and will know about it, and the less secret it will be. So you want to keep them as secret as possible, and secrecy can also be broken when passwords are guessed. Simply, a brute force attack will yield an easy will break an easy password sooner than a more complex one. And then we go to the security versus usability again, because a simple password is not very secure, but in terms of usability, this is absolutely wonderful. Nobody will have a problem remembering this one. We could make it a bit longer and do some variations in capitals and upper and lowercase letters, but still, it's not very secure. I'm not exactly sure how long it will take for a simple laptop processor to crack this one, but I imagine it should be done quite soon. But for humans, it's still pretty much okay. And then we have the option of uppercase, lowercase combined with one or more numbers. Now we're getting somewhere in terms of security. This is for most organizations, this is acceptable. This is pretty much the standard for most passwords, either with a number or with a special character. And for humans, this is pretty much okay. If we go more complex, security will go to very nice figures. But imagine having to keep this one. You'll not only have the problem of remembering it, but the problem of typos as well. And typos never happen at the first character. They always happen one or two characters from the end. And we could even go completely ballistic on this. Security will be very happy with this. But if I have to remember a password like this one, I think my pharmacist will be very happy with the rising paracetamol usage. It will be a great sales opportunity for them. Now, like I said, we can increase the secrecy of passwords by limiting the age, and we do that with password expiration. Imagine having to change that last password and rethink it every 42 days. That simply cannot be done. The third option will already become more complex, and the last option simply will not work. Nobody can imagine a 40-character completely randomized password. On the other hand, security will be over the moon with this one. And that's for humans. But what if we look at the usability for computers? Well, computers have no problem whatsoever in remembering any password. Aside from defective memory banks, they will be happy to remember everything. Whether it's a character small password or a very complex one. So in that case, security would be less of a problem. But if you add expiration to this, we run into trouble, because computers can be reactive and we can pretend to have a proactive monitoring system. But computers are very poor at predicting something. You'd have to tell them first to change the password every now and then. So even with any sort of, even with a very simple or very complex password, passwords with expiration simply cannot be handled. And then we have the option of password expiration, but now we're going to help those computers by managing the passwords for them. And in that case, pretty much any password would be fine. No matter the complexity, as long as they're changed regularly, that's not a problem. And if you know this is going to happen, it's quite simple to perform those password changes on a previously planned moment. Most companies will have a maintenance window of sorts. So if you can change the password then, you can do it pretty much every month or something. And then you'd have no problem with password expiration, and you still have the same safe password. But that would require a toolset, because if you ask this without the proper tools, people will be clicking and doing things and thinking of passwords and copy pasting them all around. And when we talk toolsets and we talk SCOM, well, there's only one option we have basically, and that's a management pack. And in order to make things happen, we need to check for password expiration. So we know in advance when things are going wrong, so we can take action before that happens. And it will be very good to have an automated task or a semi-automated task to change the passwords. So let's not go changing passwords manually, open Active Directory users and computers, change passwords. You'll forget the to remove the check for user must change password next log on. That's not very handy. So what we'll do is we'll script that out. There are some possible complications with this, and the complications are quite simple. If you change the RunAs account in SCOM and the same credentials are used in another RunAs account as well, you will have a problem. You'll have changed it for one RunAs account in SCOM, but not for the other one, and you'll change it in Active Directory for that one RunAs account, but the other one will have an incorrect password in SCOM. So you'll have an account lockout in no time. It's also possible that the account you're running this under has no permissions to change the AD password, or it doesn't have the permissions to change the SCOM RunAs password. And if you've seen the presentation by Bob Cornelius earlier this afternoon, if you move to SCOM 2022, you can assign the SCOM RunAs password change permissions specifically to certain read-only admins, so you can really target that to the team that you want to. Anyhow, most of these complications are preventable by a very simple creed: look before you leap. Make sure you check things before you start changing passwords. Or like I said, you'll be cleaning up the mess that's caused by locked out accounts and everything. What's in the management pack? For starters, there's an agent class in there. All the tasks are run from a server, a Windows server. The discovery is disabled by default. It runs every 12 hours. And you only need one of these. There's nothing stored on that server itself. No passwords, no nothing. And you only need one of these. In case you do want to make this highly available, if you want to call it that, all you have to do is override the discovery for another server that is still working and make sure that the requirements are met, obviously. And then you have that server as a management agent for this. The requirements are quite simple and quite obvious. You'll need the Active Directory and Operation Manager PowerShell modules. Otherwise, the password changes won't work. The discovery checks for that and refuses to discover the management agents if those are not available. And also UAC must be disabled. I've tried every which way I can think of to fix that, but on server 2019, UAC is enabled, and that will stop you from changing the password. It's not required for the monitoring part of it, but it is required to execute the password change task. Now, there's also the RunAs Account class. Those are the RunAs accounts themselves. There's a discovery in there, obviously, of course. And there's also a property on it showing how many profiles a RunAs account is used in. So if you have two RunAs accounts sharing the same credentials, that's one. This is the profiles. Sorry, I keep mixing these up. It's the profiles that a RunAs account is using, so the SCOM RunAs profiles. If that value shows 0, you will not see a warning of any kind. You'll just see it in the state view. And the idea behind that is to keep your environment tidy. RunAs accounts that are no longer used such as the SQL RunAs account if you've implemented the way of working that Kevin Holman has shown us, or if you have switched hardware vendors, all the Dell servers have gone for HPs, or all the HPs have gone for IBM, or all the IBMs for Dell, whatever. You can keep track of it and keep the environment tidy. There's also RunAs accounts to manage RunAs accounts. The default, as usual, is the computer account, the agent that you run this on. And that account needs to have the permissions to check the RunAs accounts in SCOM and to check the Active Directory password expiration. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to monitor those. It's not just for the agent task. Actually, if the agent task checks and notices that you are running it under the RunAs account, it will not execute the password change. Okay, models in there. The scripts for those run on the agent, obviously using the default permissions, like I said earlier. We check for the expiration setting. So accounts that have the password never expires option set will generate a warning. Basically, if you use this management pack, use it or don't use it, but don't use half of it. If you want to go secure, go secure. We also check for RunAs accounts sharing the same credentials. That's what I mentioned earlier. I can't think of any good reason why anyone would want this. Why would you have two RunAs accounts in SCOM with the same credentials? If that happens, clean up your act, because you will run into trouble sooner or later, and probably sooner than later, rather than later. And obviously, we need to check for upcoming expiration. We have the tools now, but if we don't use them in time, well, let's not do that. The state change for this is set to 10, below 10 days is a warning, and below 5 becomes critical. And why not 1 day? Because everybody hates those annoying pop-ups saying you need to change your password. Well, the idea behind that is, imagine the alert comes on Friday evening at 6. Everyone just went home for the weekend, and Monday and Tuesday is Christmas. So the first one in the office is on Wednesday morning. If you set the monitoring accounts to, or the critical to 3 days, you will have to do some cleanup, because you'll simply be too late in changing the password. And obviously those thresholds can be overridden. Now, and then there's the agent task in there. Like I said, it was run under a user context. If whoami shows the RunAs account for the management pack, it errors out. If you are going to use this, make sure you keep the separation of concern in mind. And the best option will be to delegate the password reset permissions to SCOM admins or SCOM read-only admins that only have the option to change those passwords. And when we check the look before you leap approach, we check for permissions in AD first by trying to change the account description. If that succeeds, then we change in SCOM. Change the password in SCOM. If that succeeds and we know we have the permissions to change the account in Active Directory, obviously the description is sent back to what it was. And we have the permissions, then we change the password in Active Directory. And what kind of password do we use? Well, it is a random generated password containing 6 uppercase letters, 6 lowercase, and it's stored in 4 numbers and 4 special characters. It's stored very briefly in memory, as long as the task is executing. And other than that, it's only stored in Active Directory and in the SCOM RunAs account, nowhere else. It's not printed, it's not logged in an event log or something, nothing. That does make you think about a few possible scenarios. What if you need the password for troubleshooting purposes? Well, in that case, you'll have to reset both ends manually, both in SCOM and in Active Directory. As I said, the password is not stored anywhere. And let's be honest, how often does this happen? How often do we need to log on to that with that account to check things? Only if you're developing management packs, so that really is an issue. What if the password change still fails, even after the precautions that we take? Well, first we need to check the impact on the workflows that we have. Do we get any lockouts? Do we get any other problems? Then we need to check the permissions and try again. There's no other way. Or you have to reset the passwords manually. Okay, the demo, like I said, I was hoping to do it all live and shining and nice, but unfortunately, my Hyper-V box had other plans. So I'm going to stick with some screenshots. I created a bunch of RunAs accounts. As you can see, the description shows what these settings are. Some are enterprise admins, some are domain users. Some can change the password, some cannot change the password. And if you look at the passwords just below the one that's selected, they're both healthy. One can change the password, one account cannot change the password. That really is not much of a problem for the management pack. And why is that? Because the account itself doesn't change the password. We use the set AD password commandlet with the reset option. So we run under the user context of an admin changing the password. What happens if we run the account, the agent task? There you just moving back a bit. You can see the agent task in the lower right hand corner, change password task. And if we click that and we go to the usual SCOM task view and we click run, as I said, this task cannot run under a default or system account. Please enter specific credentials. The reason for this is quite simple. We do not want to do this automated. There are too many caveats around this. And we want to make sure that this is done by someone with somewhat of a human touch. And this animation went slightly wrong direction. If we do this using the regular user, I entered my own domain account here, then you can see that the test was successful, the original description has been restored. Password has been changed correctly for the RunAs account. Password last updated AD shows, and I did this one on May 15th, or I will do this on May 15th. The date obviously is off because I've been testing. And how did I test? I tested by accelerating time on my Hyper-V box. Somehow that you become a real magician on my Hyper-V. And I also created a small PowerShell script showing that. It highlights the accounts that were recently changed. Now, there's a few other monitors in there. As I said, the monitor for the password never expires setting. If that is set, then this monitor will show an alert. And the other monitor is for the shared credentials, and that will show the shared credential list. If you look at the shared credit users list, that indicates the RunAs account that we are now looking at, and the one that's changing, that's using the same credentials. So that will help you in changing the RunAs account settings. In terms of a typically Dutch question, how much? Well, I've been working in monitoring for just about 20 years now. of just over. And I've taken so much for the community, from the community, that I think it was high time I gave something back. So all you need is a bit of time. Use it at your own risk. I cannot and will not accept any form of liability in case you change passwords that you shouldn't. And the management pack will be available from my blog probably tomorrow. I've been watching SCOM since the first session this morning at 7 AM Dutch time, and it's now 9:30 in the evening, so I don't think it would be very smart of me to go publishing things with a considerable risk of making the odd mistake here and there. The link will be on the screen there, and I'll make sure that's posted on the SCOM Slack channel as soon as it's ready. And that brings me pretty much to the end of my presentation. Unfortunately, a bit shorter than I thought. For lack of a proper demo. Hope the organisation doesn't shoot me for this. But I'm wondering if there are any questions. Not sure. You can see the chat somewhere. There it is. Right. Thanks, Nick. Yep. Oh. Thanks for the compliments. Bob, for SCOM service accounts and some of the RunAs accounts, GMSA, so group managed service accounts might also be an option. Also, humans remembering storing passwords. What's your thoughts? Well, and the next question is, I missed the link. Can you show that again? Certainly can. There we go. Group managed service accounts. Well, the issue with that is that you have, as an admin, you have absolutely no control over them. And if you do need to test something, as you sometimes might want to, you don't have much of an option. You could do that for some services, I'm sure. On the other hand, using group managed service accounts could also be security risks by themselves. They can be leveraged by other workflows as well, and in case someone wants to try something. So, and true, yeah. And then there's also the, yeah, oh, wait. Okay. Thanks for all the friendly words from everyone. And no more questions in there. I will be in the SCOM Slack channel for quite a while, and I'll be in the panel later on tonight. So, if there are no more questions, I'll end pretty much like everyone else did, but not less honest. Thank you very much for attending this presentation.
Thank you, Gerald. Good presentation today. Since you wrapped up a few minutes early, what I'll do is I'll just go start the next session over in Zoom a couple minutes early, and I'll see everybody over there.
Yeah.